Welcome to Two Girls, One Crime, the podcast where we peel back the layers of the darkest crimes ever committed, one terrifying tale at a time. I'm your host, Christy, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Kayla. So this story is like my baby. I have known about this story since I think I had my first kid, so almost 30 years ago. So I was up late one night watching America's Most Wanted, had a baby. He's up half the time. And this story came across that John Walsh did, and it broke my heart. I think because the kid was blonde, he was a cute little boy, and it reminded me so much of Zach, my son. So this story is very near and dear to me, like so much that I drove all the way from Abilene, Texas to Philadelphia and pushed my way into the cemetery because they were about to close, and I threw a big fit. And anybody that knows me knows that I do not throw fits, but I threw a fit and I was like, you're letting me in, because I drove all this way to see this little boy's grave. This is like my story. So
wait. Was it just spontaneous?
Yeah, I was like, I want to go to Philadelphia. And
like the same day?
No,
like,
this was years later. We had, Rick was in the military and we moved, but we were going to take the kids on this trip to Boston, and I said, you're taking me to Philadelphia. And we did.
But I could see you getting up in the middle of the night and be like, you want to go over here with me? I
probably would. I don't know what it is about this kid, but I'm obsessed with this kid. This story just kills me. But it started in February 25th, 1957. A 26-year-old student named Frederick Benonis, I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but that's what I'm going to go with, Benonis, was looking for muskrats in Fox Chase, which is right outside of Philadelphia. And he came across a big cardboard box. It was actually a bassinet bought from JCPenney. Well, in that bassinet was this little boy, about 4 to 6 years old. Of course, he was not alive. He was completely nude, but wrapped in an old blanket. And someone had cut his hair. There was little blonde curls all around him. They had given him a bath. He had washerwoman effect. Do you know what that is?
No.
So when you're in the bathtub for a long time, your fingers get wrinkly. Well, that's called washerwoman effect, because back in the day when people, they would hire women to do their laundry, you did it in the creek or in an old tub, and you did it so much that your fingers turned wrinkly, and that's what they called it, was washerwoman. They had clipped his nails. They had done everything but call the funeral home for this little boy. So when they pull him out, he had bruises all over him, mostly around his head. It looked like someone had put their fingers around his head and squeezed him and shaved his head. So, he had been beaten. He had a little scar on his jaw, on his chin, the underside of his chin from a surgery, and he had a little scar on his groin. So somewhere, this little boy had been in the hospital because he had surgery on something. And then his left eye, he had been treated by an ailment. I'm not sure exactly what was wrong with his eye, but someone had been putting drops in it. So it was pitiful.
So he was a sickly kid.
He was a sickly kid, but nobody knew who he was. So they took the little boy, and this detective, his name was Remington Bristow, became obsessed with him. He did a death mask of this little boy, and he carried this around in his trunk until the day that he died. So when they brought him back, Remington went and got some clothes from his own son, and they dressed this little boy up in regular kids' clothes and took pictures of him setting up. So, they tried to make him look like he was alive. They put these on flyers. They distributed them everywhere in Philadelphia. Everybody was getting them in their mail. They sent them off to other parts of the country. Nobody knew anything about this kid.
How would nobody know? Like a kid being that little.
We'll get to that. But yeah, nobody knew. So in the 1980s to 2000s, of course, we got new forensic stuff. So they did facial reconstruction. They did DNA testing to try to identify him, and nothing. Still nothing. Nobody knew anything about this little boy. After his funeral, they did have a funeral for him, and they buried him in a pauper's grave. The city actually paid for his funeral. Remington gave him more clothes to be buried in, and somebody donated a gravestone, and it's a beautiful little lamb, and it says America's Unknown Child, and it just has February 25th, 1957, which is the day he was found.
So is that what you went to go see?
Yes. So when you pull into, I think it's called Ivy Hill Cemetery in Philadelphia. It's right outside of Philly. And when you pull in, you go straight across, and there's this big, beautiful tree right in the middle of the cemetery, and he is buried right there. And there was this thing called the VDOC Society, which was investigators that had retired, and they brought this club together, and they would go over old cases, and they donated a beautiful little bench that they put there so you can see that. And then at the end of his grave, they also have, so let me go back a little. So when he was buried in his pauper's grave, at first he had just a regular tombstone that said, Heavenly Father, bless this unknown child. That's what they had. Well, the VDOC Society got the bigger headstone that said America's Unknown Child with the date he was found, and then they had the beautiful bench. So in 1998, his body was exhumed for the first time for DNA extraction. So he had some teeth and I think a leg bone that they got some DNA.
Did you say
from.
1998?
Yes.
So
yes.
recently.
Well, I mean,
recently enough.
Yeah, but like this case has haunted people this long.
Yeah.
And there's a huge update. I'll get to that in a minute. But they got some DNA from him. Nothing. Didn't have anything. Nobody still knew anything. So they had a huge funeral for him, and half of Philadelphia showed up. They had bagpipes. Like, it was beautiful. And you can look on the VDOC Society or America's Unknown Child website, and it shows pictures. It was beautiful. They did till recently. Every February 25th, they would have like a vigil for him. And like, they really came together.
It's weird to me that how they found him like clean, but then bruises.
Right.
But if he was sick, when you think about it, like, did he just die naturally?
No, he died from blunt force trauma.
So it was proven that he died from that.
But all this time, nobody knew who this kid was. Nobody ever claimed. And there was tons of people that would come by and look at his body. There was a soldier in the Air Force that thought he might be his cousin, but it wasn't. There was a famous boy that had got abducted. Let me find his name real quick. And they thought it might be him, but it wasn't. Let me find that little boy's name.
How does a kid go missing, but
With
just
nothing?
nobody?
Nobody knew anything about him. Stephen Craig Damon was the son of an airman stationed at Mitchell Air Force Base in New York who had been kidnapped, and they thought it was him, but of course it wasn't. Then a woman came forward. I think this was probably 2000s, and said that her mom had bought a little boy named Jonathan.
Had bought
him and used him for sexual pleasures, I guess, and then had beat him to death and killed him. So a lot of people thought that this Jonathan kid could be him, and he had been bought, from out of state. But it wasn't, of course. But in, 2022, a woman decided to do her DNA through Ancestry.com. And guess what? That was her cousin. His name come to be Joseph Augustus Zarelli, and he was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on January 13th, 1953. His mom's name was Betty, and I'm not sure of his dad's name. I can't remember, but they were not married, and she was young. But nobody ever knew anything about him.
So
Nobody remembers him.
Even after the cousin found out that she was a relative to him.
Well, Betty had been dead by then.
So
He has brothers and sisters. Joseph
have they been found yet?
Yes.
They have.
And nobody knows anything about him.
Still. Somebody has to know
You
something.
have to know something. But everybody said that Betty was very nice. Betsy, I can't remember what her name was. She was very nice, and...
if she had a family, or even if she didn't, like, just people in general would have seen her.
You would think.
Like, you would know she was pregnant. If he was 4 years old.
Right, he was 4 years old when
So
he
somebody
passed
would have
away.
known something.
They initially thought there was a wayward school for girls there in Fox Chase, and they thought that maybe he was one of those girls' little boys. And the blanket that he was wrapped in, they actually found another piece to it at the wayward school for girls, but it wasn't linked together for some reason.
It's so weird.
I know, right? This story is crazy. Like, This kid went, 65 years without anybody knowing his name?
But, like, if he had scars on him and stuff, and he's had medical things, you would think that a
Right.
hospital or somebody
Well,
would
I
know
know
something.
that in Philly, I want to say the 60s or 70s, the hospital was flooded in the
So
basement.
maybe the records.
So his records were probably destroyed.
But you can't tell me that, like, workers,
Well,
like
even
nurses or doctors wouldn't
If
know.
my friend is pregnant, she had to tell somebody that she was pregnant and had a baby. And if he made it for 4 years, where did she keep him?
Yeah.
Her mom and dad didn't know, her brothers and sisters.
They wouldn't know.
Somebody has to know something. That's what's so heartbreaking for the story. I think that
Unless if she
this
came up with, like,
baby
some
was-
random story
but
that...
this baby was thrown in a garbage pile, because that's what it was. This kid was out looking for muskrats, and it was in a pile of trash where everybody threw their trash in Fox Chase. But why go so far to cut his hair, bathe him, clip his
That's
fingernails?
what I don't understand. Or did somebody else find him and do that?
I don't know. Did she have
Maybe she done that, like, as a respect
remorse?
thing.
Maybe. I mean, she did everything but call the
Or,
funeral
like,
director.
guilt. I just wonder if he had medical issues. If maybe she...
Maybe he was
maybe
a
it was
special needs kid, and it was just
too much to
yeah.
handle.
And she was trying to give him a haircut or a bath or something, and it was too much. But there's been all kinds of stuff. There's a movie. I can't remember the movie, but it's not a very good movie, but it's loosely based on him. I know Cold Case. Do you remember the TV show Cold Case?
Mhm.
Well, they did a story on him, but their story was that he was born in a convent. A nun had got pregnant by a priest and had him, and they sent him off to do electric shock therapy because he was a little wild, and that's what killed him.
But that doesn't really add up to with, like, things that...
I think for Cold Case, they were just trying to
Come up with
solve the
something.
case. That was their ending, which I did not love that.
No.
I did not love that at all. But this story is just, it breaks my heart. And I have prayed for this kid every single night since the day that I heard about his case.
But why would somebody not want to say something?
I don't know.
Somebody
that's what's
knew
baffling.
something.
You have to know something.
And went that long without even knowing a name.
Mm-hmm. It wasn't
That's
until
crazy.
2022 that he even had a name and a birthday. And nobody knew anything about him. The mom and dad were, like I said, they weren't married or together. So I wonder, did he know? But she gave him his last name. Like, was he there?
Somebody
Who
had to
signed the birth
Period.
certificate? Where was he born?
Even there would have been doctors to know
Somebody.
something.
Well, I mean, everybody's dead now, pretty much.
But then I wonder if maybe he was special, like had special needs,
He
because
could.
then
I mean, in the 50s.
back then they
yeah, you didn't parade that
No.
around, which is sad. So
which
sad.
would make sense why nobody would say anything, or
I mean, did she keep him in a basement?
like Sylvia.
Like Sylvia? Yeah.
I don't know.
But this little boy he had bruises all over him. Like, I don't know, maybe he had fits. Maybe he was epileptic or something, and the bruises were from that, and he could have died.
He could have just had medical issues.
Yeah.
You know,
But-
she didn't know what to do.
And the bruises around his face, like, it really did look like somebody just held his head and had their fingerprints on his forehead. And we'll put the pictures up, of course, on our site. And then I don't know, it's just so sad. But I do have pictures of his grave. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful place to be. It was very peaceful. And literally, as soon as you walk into the cemetery, his grave is front and center, and everybody leaves presents, and they take such good care of it.
So he has family now.
He does. I don't know if anybody.
But
really-
do you know if anybody's ever looked into his stuff?
I mean, they've looked into it, but nothing's ever
Still
come
can't
out of
find
it.
anything.
Mm-mm. Nothing.
There has to be something.
Oh, absolutely. But he does have a new marker now, and it says Joseph Augustus Zarelli, born January 13th, 1953, died February 25th, 1957.
So we got a new headstone.
He did. They still have his old one, but they put his name
Added
on.
a
They
different
added
one.
his name on there. But I am so thankful that he at least has a name. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what your name is. You're defined by your name, And he didn't even have that in his death for the longest time.
So was his head shaved?
It was, yes. They did shave his head. It looked like he had some curls. And when they shaved it, they just left it there in the box. His fingernail clippings were in the box.
So he never went missing or anything. He was just
Nobody
found.
ever, yeah. The kid looking for muskrat just happened to find him. And they did trace the box back to a local JCPenney. But, I mean, it could have been a box that they found, you know, because they went to the person that bought the box and their kid was there, so.
But that's weird.
It is very weird. So I'm assuming she found the box probably in the trash there and put him in there.
But who thinks to do that?
I mean, who thinks to throw your kid in the trash pile?
I guess if she knew that nobody would think anything of it, that's why I'm wondering if maybe he had special needs.
He could. That's the only thing I can come up with. But still, what kind of person are you not to give your child their name? Their dignity.
Yeah.
And I don't care how nice Betty or Betsy or whatever her name was. You're a piece of crap for doing that.
Has anybody looked at the history of her?
Yeah, she raised her kids just fine. Everything was great. She's the best mom
So
in the world.
did he have siblings at the time?
Not then, but he does now. I'm assuming.
So after.
Yeah, I'm assuming after she got married and went on about her life. You know, just throw Joseph out in the trash and
So
move
do
on.
they know that they?
Yeah, they all know.
Do they all have the same dad?
That I don't know. It's not the same dad as him.
So how old are they?
They're in their 50s now.
Or if we can get a hold of them.
I don't know. That's something we could look into.
Because they have to know something about their mom.
Yeah, they said
Surely
she's great.
she's mentioned it though. Surely.
But if you mention it, are you going to go to jail? I mean, she went to her grave. If she was the one that killed him, which, come on now. She went to her grave with a secret. Never mentioned it to anybody.
But maybe she didn't mean to.
Maybe not.
And she
but
just didn't know how
still.
to handle it. Maybe she's like secretly grieving.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I hope she grieved a lot because that's the least she could do for him.
That's crazy.
It's very crazy. This story breaks my heart. This is,
I just
like
think
my
there's
story.
Maybe more to it than
there
that.
has
though.
to be more to it. You don't just kill your kid and move on about your life and, oh, well, you know, that's a Tuesday for you. Took the trash out.
I mean, that's crazy, but at the same time, like, I don't. Like,
But-
maybe, I don't know. Because you know how, like, sometimes people are like, their kids die or something, and they, like,
Freak,
panic
yeah.
because they're so upset.
But even
But
if
they
you
don't really know
panic,
what I know. But
where was he for 4
I'm
years
just
that
curious.
nobody knows about this baby?
that's what makes me think there was something wrong with him. And, like, the scars and stuff.
Yeah. And the ailment of his eye, I don't know what exactly they were. He was being treated by something.
And maybe she just didn't say anything about it if she knew, because if he was special, like if he had special needs, then
Yeah.
she would just assume that, you know, people would just, oh, well, you done what you had to do. Because back then
Maybe.
it wasn't like these, like with Down syndrome, people, like back then they done like the whole shock therapy
Yeah,
and all
locked
of
'em
that,
away.
like thinking
Pitiful.
that, you know, but they're just human. I mean, they're just like
Absolutely.
everybody else. But back then, you know,
Yeah, and maybe that's what it was.
and maybe she just didn't think that anybody would care.
Maybe he was the family secret.
Yeah.
And instead of living a shameful life of having a special needs kid, you just
Which I'm not condoning it.
oh, absolutely
But
not.
like back then, if you think about it in that way, maybe she just grieved and didn't know what to do.
I don't know, but
But how did the siblings know that they had a brother?
because it was traced back to his,
So they didn't
their
know until
mom.
then.
No, they had no clue. Nobody knew.
So I wonder what they think about it.
And this story is huge in Philadelphia. So when we went, we were at, I think we were getting ice cream in the middle of Philadelphia, which is a scary place, by the way. I'm just going to say that.
Is
When
it
you're-
like Indianapolis?
Oh, honey. No. No. Trust me. But I asked a lady and I said, can you tell me where Fox Chase is? And she was like, why do you want to go there? And I told her, she's like, oh, you're going to visit America's Unknown Child. Yeah. So you go down here and you do this. Everybody knows. Everybody knows about this case.
So it's just common history. Well, and it's recently been a break in the case.
Oh, it was huge. And, I remember, so I saw the news, which of course made me excited. And they just did this big news conference. And of course, I'm a teacher and I'm not supposed to do this, but my lunch break, I'm like, you guys are going to do this over here. And I am watching this. I'm sorry, school, but like, it's time for you to do independent work. I've got to watch this. It was huge. And, they're still working on the case, but.
So when did you visit his grave for the first time? That was before the break.
It was, yeah. That was probably 2008, 2009.
So a long time ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I got pictures of his grave and everything, and I mean, it was a beautiful place.
So I wonder what, because you said his cousin traced it back to her.
Mm-hmm.
Like, was she looking?
She just did
to
a
that,
DNA
or just
thing.
curious?
No, she was just curious and did a DNA thing.
So how did it come back to him?
Because they entered his DNA
after they found all that stuff.
After they extracted his DNA from his teeth and his leg bone, they uploaded it, of course, because that's the new thing. So when they uploaded it and she did hers, it pinged, and then they got to talking, and I guess they found birth records of him, but that's all they could find.
So does his birth records have the dad on it?
Nothing.
No.
Just him.
And the mom.
Mm-hmm.
Mom's name.
Yep.
But where was he born?
In Philadelphia. But like I said, all of the records were gone after that. There was a flood and they lost everything. So.
That's crazy.
Yep. So when they identified it, it was a huge, huge thing, especially in Philly. Like.
I never even heard of that case.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes me sad. I wish everybody knew about this case because this is my case.
Yeah.
I've been obsessed with this case since the day I found it. I know that's weird. I'm not a weird person, but...
Honey, you're weird.
I am weird, but that's okay. Something about this boy I think I just wanted to be his mom. I had Zach.
Because he doesn't have anybody.
He didn't have anybody, and I just wanted him so bad to have somebody.
Yeah.
And he needed a name. That's
How
just
does
not
nobody
fair.
know? Like, even just...
Everybody's gone from that time.
But, I mean, just toss the kid out. Like, it ain't nothing.
I
Like,
know.
somebody had to have seen something. That's what really makes me think that maybe he, had some medical issues that weren't, back then. That
You don't just keep a kid in the basement or wherever
and that's
for 4
why
years.
nobody's just never said anything.
Yeah.
But can they do that through his DNA? Like, could they test that now to see if he had issues?
I would think if they, probably.
I don't know how that works.
Depending on what he had.
But, like, could they test it and, like, maybe if he had...
Well, I know when you're doing DNA, you only have so much, and they could only get so much from him. And I guess it was more important to see who he was rather than...
I guess so it's not important, but I want to know.
Oh, I do too.
Because that would make sense to why nobody knew anything, or why nobody said anything, because people had to know. They just wasn't saying anything.
Well, just like, we talked about Sylvia Likens in the 60s. People knew things, but they didn't say anything.
Well, I think, like, back then, if people said something, they could be threatened more easily.
True.
Like, if you say something, I'm going to kill you.
Could be.
Like, today, like, you can just act like you're shooting a gun, and it's a lot different now.
Yeah. Well, in the 50s, too, you're an unwed mother, you have a baby by some local mechanic. That's not something you want out there. I mean, they had a whole school for wayward girls.
Yeah.
So, if you could get pregnant and be sent off to a school, that was a shameful event back then.
I just wonder how old his mom was at the time. Was she like a teen mom?
I think, let me look her up real quick. Because I don't know a whole lot about her besides the fact that everybody just thought she was the best.
I wonder if she's like a teen mom or something.
So her name was Mary Elizabeth Plunkett, but she went by Betsy. And his dad was Augustus John Zarelli.
So he did
everybody
have a dad.
Yeah, he did have a dad known by Gus, but they weren't together, and they had different. Joseph and the rest of them had different dads.
So what's on the Facebook page? Just like if people see stuff?
Yeah, or just updates.
Like a memorial
Yeah,
type
it's
thing?
pretty much like a memorial. So it does say police have suspicions about who's responsible for Joseph's death, but calls it irresponsible to share them since it remains an ongoing investigation.
So it's still ongoing.
Oh, yeah, it's still ongoing, but, I mean, Mom is gone.
But I'm assuming, like, if they think that the mom done it, they could just do testing on her, right?
Well, I mean, probably. Let's see. So this is Mom, and we'll put that up there too.
She looks like a killer.
So this was her back in the day.
No, she doesn't. I mean, she does give me those vibes, but...
She was very 50s for sure.
Well, she was pretty, though.
Yeah, she wasn't bad, but, I mean...
She seemed sweet, though. So maybe it wasn't just... Maybe if she was the one that done it, maybe it wasn't intentional.
Maybe. I want to say it wasn't... I want to hope it wasn't intentional, but...
My thing is what I'm going to tell myself. That she was young, and this kid just had special needs. He died naturally, and she didn't know what to do.
Well, she probably didn't have
That's what
family
I'm
to
gonna
help.
tell myself.
But everybody said she was, very nice.
I mean, she looks nice in the picture.
So he has half siblings still alive on his mom and his dad's side. Both parents are gone, of course.
So was Dad ever in the picture?
No. They dated, but that was it.
Did he even know about him, though?
That's what I wonder. Did he know?
I mean, he has to know, though, because you would think.
Well, unless she kept him a secret.
But then, I mean, he could date it back, surely, and be like, hey, I think that's my kid. Unless if he just done, like, one time and done and left.
Maybe. But, yeah, his siblings are still alive. But no one knew anything about him. Nobody ever said anything. Mom never said, hey, let me tell you the story. You actually had a brother. Nope.
Even like on her deathbed, why wouldn't you say something? What did she die from?
I think it's just old age. I don't know. My phone's being weird.
Because if something like that happened, I would definitely want to say that, at least on my deathbed. Be like, hey.
Right. Siblings are being very quiet about it.
I think they know something.
I don't know though. I really don't.
Out of all them years, you would think that the mom would slip up or something, or find something.
I mean, you would hope, but people take stuff to the grave.
But that's your kid. I mean, she might not even been the one to do it. She might not have even killed him.
Maybe not. I mean...
Maybe he did die of natural stuff.
So she died January 22nd, 1991. She was 59 years old.
So she was young.
Apparently.
59. Does it say what she died from?
That's what I'm looking at right now. So she married John Joseph Plunkett. She was born in 1931 in Philadelphia.
So I wonder if she ever went to go... Did she die before they had the grave for him?
No, they've always had the grave since the 50s.
So I wonder if she went and visited him.
Maybe. So, being an unmarried mother, it's likely he was given up for adoption and that Betsy never informed the father. So, I mean, that could be an option too. Was he given away? But wouldn't there be records? Well, I guess not in the 50s. You could just drop kids off.
Yeah. Just be like, oh, I don't want you.
So in the 60s, she married John Joseph Plunkett, and they had daughters. And then she died at 59. She was buried in West Laurel Hill Cemetery.
But even if you give your kid up for adoption and something like that happened, you would think that she would at least claim him.
Right.
But maybe she didn't know. Because if she gave him away at birth and he was 4 years old, I mean, maybe she didn't know.
I mean, even if you gave him away, I think I would still tell my other kids. You know, I was really young when I had this little boy. I gave him up for adoption. It's just something I had to do. I would still tell them.
Unless if she was ashamed by it.
Maybe.
Or just still, maybe she grieved about it.
I mean, I hope she did. I hope people grieved about him.
There's just so many stories that could, so many ways that could turn.
Yeah. But I will continue to pray for him every single night. At least he has a name now.
It's very interesting.
When I go to heaven, that's going to be my first question. Can I meet Joseph, please? I need to see what happened. We got story time.
It is strange though. They don't know, even after all this time, they still don't know anything. And then the fact that just recently family was found, but still nobody knows anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the siblings weren't born, and mom must have just never said anything.
And if mom died in what, you said 91?
91, yeah.
And she was 50.
59.
Then the dad would probably still be living out there somewhere, wouldn't he?
I think he actually passed away too. Let me find him real quick.
But he never know he even had the kid, right?
No. Well, we don't know. Nobody knows anything. So he died in 2014.
So that was just 10 years ago.
He was 87.
11 years ago.
Yeah. And he had children. They've got 1953 to 1957, Joseph. Baby Michael Zarelli, 1960 to 1960. And baby boy Zarelli, 1961 to 1961. So he had 2 more babies that did not make it.
So wait a minute. What if he killed him?
Could be. I'm looking at the baby stuff now, and I'm trying to see what they died of. I'm assuming
they're just like SIDS,
that's
stillborn, maybe.
I can't get it to load anymore. But I mean, that's kind of weird. I'm sorry. Both of those babies passed, and then so all 3 of his sons died.
That's
as
weird.
Little kids.
But he had daughters too, or
no,
just
the
boys?
mom had daughters.
So all the kids that he had, they all died.
Yes.
Now that's weird.
Joseph being the oldest. He made it 4 years. The other kids did not make it.
So now my theory is, what if he found out that he had this kid, found him later on and killed him? Then
Stranger things have happened, I guess.
It's a weird story. There's a lot of stories that could be,
yes.
a lot of theories that can be done with that.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's weird that he had a cousin that was found in 2022, and still nothing.
Yeah, nobody.
Like
in the
even
family
after
knows
all
anything.
this time, that's weird.
Yeah,
there's got to be something somewhere. Somebody's got to know something. Somebody's just not saying anything.
Oh, absolutely. I think that everybody that knows anything is probably dead. So even if there was people that knew something way back then and just didn't want to say anything to get Betsy in trouble.
So it's still just a story that nobody's ever going to know about.
Yes. I'm sure this will never go any farther.
Interesting. That's sad though.
Yes. So just like every other night, I'll continue to pray for him, and eventually, hopefully, something comes out, and I just hope he is resting comfortably now.
I'm sure he is.
I hope so.
It's still weird.
Yes.
It's
very weird. But it is a very sad, sad, sad story, and I hate it. I hate that it ever happened to him. But I'm glad that after he passed away, that the city of Philadelphia stood up for him, gave him a beautiful grave, gave him a beautiful headstone.
Well, the fact that they still do it, they celebrate him every year.
I love it. Yeah.
Surely somebody will say something eventually, or something will be found.
So Philadelphia is a very scary place to be, but it is the city of brotherly love, and I feel like they have loved him. And his stories never went away. Nobody ever gave up. That's what's the best. The family won't say anything, but everybody in Philadelphia still
But it doesn't have to just be the family. I mean, surely somebody knows something.
Somebody
like friends, neighbors, somebody.
As a girl becoming pregnant, you've got to tell somebody. That's not a secret.
Doctors, especially if you had.
Which, who knows? She probably didn't get prenatal care. And did he had to see some doctor because he had those scars. And it was a surgical scar. Both of them were.
Yeah, but the records could have been ruined by the flood, but those doctors and nurses would still know something.
Yeah. But in the 50s, you just keep your mouth shut. It's none of your business. None of your beeswax.
I guess so.
Not like today when everybody tells everything.
M-O-Y-O-B.
For sure.
Mind your own business. Unless it's somebody kills somebody.
Yeah.
I'm not minding my own business.
No.
I'm minding mine and theirs.
Oh, absolutely.
'Cause I wanna
am
know.
all up in your business
I'm
if you're out
nosy.
killing people.
I'm nosy.
I want to know everything, and I'm probably going to tell everybody everything because I had a big mouth anyway.
Me too. I better be the first to tell too.
I
But
couldn't
you
keep-
tell.
I couldn't keep that a secret.
Like the time you called me about that bone you found in the cemetery.
Okay, listen. In my defense, it was a bone. It was a bone, and the police said
Kaylee know?
definitely.
Have you told Kaylee that
Okay, let me tell you the story of the bone in the graveyard. This is Christy's big mystery.
Oh my god.
So, a friend of mine said, "Oh, I saw a bone in the graveyard, but I was too scared to look at it."
It
Well,
was not her friend, it was her.
my assistant, my friend, Cheyenne. This one's for you. It was Cheyenne.
Did she really?
Yes, Cheyenne.
I thought you
love
was the one that was.
Cheyenne called and said, "Hey, I see a bone in the graveyard, and I don't want to look at it." So I'm
Knowing
like,
that it's Cheyenne makes it even better.
so she told me what was my first instinct? I'm going bone shopping today. So I drive out and I call her and I'm like, "Okay, what grave is it?" So she points me. Sure enough, there is a leg bone. Okay, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I have found a dead person in a cemetery." How likely is that? How likely is that? First of all, my first thought was, "Oh my god, I have found Crystal Rogers. They have buried her on top of this grave." The grave was up above the ground, but it was cracked and open. So I thought, "Oh my god, they have shut this poor girl in here." And then I thought, well, maybe this grave's from like the 1800s. Maybe the bone has come up. I called the police, of course. "Hey, there's a bone. I'm just a regular citizen."
Did you
out
call
here."
me before the police?
Okay, I called Kayla first and said, "Kayla, come look at this bone." She could not make it. So then I called the police.
You did FaceTime me though. And you showed it, and I was like,
Listen,
"Oh my
you're
god, that
making
does
this-
look like."
You're making this worse on me. I called the police like a good citizen. After I called my friends, of course, I was like, "Hey, look, Kayla." So they called the forensic people in the corner, and it was a deer bone.
It was a bone though.
It was a bone. So they said that their theory is an animal had took the deer bone and pulled it into this grave. But so I
Well,
did
to your
not.
defense, it did look like the grave was like
Yes, it was.
sloped, and it looked
right.
like it had been sunken.
Listen, I thought that I had.
That was
solved
a very tall
the crime.
person's bone.
I didn't measure it, but I thought I had solved
That's-
the crime of the century.
That's
in
the
Kentucky.
definition of big boned people.
Okay, she's big boned. That deer was big boned. So the police officer did call me back and said, "Ma'am, thank you for being a good citizen." Not really. He did not say that. He said, "Look, it's a deer bone." Quit,
Yeah, you
quit calling
stupid
me
idiot.
that. Don't be looking for bones
How
in a
tall do you
graveyard.
expect this person to be?
Anyway, I did not solve the crime of Crystal Rogers like I thought I did. But there's
That is getting solved, though.
good.
maybe.
Not by me. But I thought, I'm
No.
gonna be rich. I've got all
That's
this
why we
money
tell
now.
the stories. We don't do we don't do the solving. We just
Listen, I felt like Scooby-Doo out there, and I was about to solve a mystery. The mystery of the missing deer bone.
such an idiot.
Well, you
I
know,
love you.
I do my part.
You do. You're gonna solve some animal murders.
One day, something big is gonna happen, and I'm gonna solve some crimes, and you're gonna be like, "I remember when she called me with her first mystery that turned out to be a deer bone."
Don't call. Well, I want to say call the police first, but
No,
then
you
I
don't.
want to know.
No, you don't.
Call
you
me
want to say,
first.
"Call me first,"
Call me first.
and I did. But guess what?
Appreciate it.
You weren't there for me when I needed you.
I was
the
in
most.
London. And I'm glad I wasn't after finding out it was just a deer bone. You give a stupid by yourself.
Listen, I took pictures and sent it to my family. I'm like, "Look, I have found a dead person."
This is
I'm gonna
stupid.
get all my phone confiscated one day.
What other bones has she found?
That's it. I promise. You'll be the first to know. Trust me, I've already proved that.
Please. What was Cheyenne doing there?
Oh, okay, Cheyenne. She's taking pictures of
Of what?
her daughter and scary. It was around Halloween time, so they were taking some cool pictures. I hope Cheyenne don't mind if I say her name 15 times.
Cheyenne. Well, she don't know.
That's the thing.
Yeah, she don't know.
So anyway, that is the story of Joseph Augustus Zarelli, my number one story ever. And I'm telling
Very
you,
sad to not know what happened to the little guy.
yes, but he is loved. It may not be by his family, but he is definitely loved by me.
I just
By
wonder what his family would
everybody
think,
in
though, if
Philadelphia.
they did know.
I don't know, but shame on you for not saying something. If you
Yeah.
did know, shame on you. I don't care what happened, shame on you. Shame, shame. I will leave a review. I'm just saying. You should have said something. I don't care what year it is or what you believe. Step up.
Yeah.
Especially with a little kid that died without his name.
Well, even that that he has a name now and he has a last name, you would think, hey, we have the same last name and there's nothing on that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I would do.
I mean, it's an
I'd be
ongoing
like,
investigation. But
let me go see.
I mean,
if
they
can.
probably want everybody to be quiet about it until they saw what's going on.
Well, now that they have a name, surely they'll find all these other people.
I hope so.
Maybe, and be like, hey, let's get
I
some
mean,
testing done to see if
This is an ongoing case.
anything
so
is connectable. Is
I
that a
hope
word?
so.
Connectable?
Connectable, it can be your word if it's
Okay.
not.
Connectable.
But thank you for listening. As always, our ramblings and what we do best. So thanks for listening to Two Girls, One Crime. If you found this story heartbreaking, which I do, please step up. If you know something, even if you don't want to embarrass somebody, get up off your butt and say something. Don't let people go to their graves without a name or dignity.
Especially kids.
Yes. But stay safe, stay smart, and stay curious. Thanks, guys.